All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome back after spring break. Did you get a chance to rest and relax? Reset? No? No? Just kept trucking through, huh? You were sick? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. My spouse was sick too, so they didn't have a good vacation, but I did. So, and as you can tell, I got a lot of sun, and I'm struggling with the effects of being sunburned, so, because that happened unexpectedly. Yeah.
Where were you?
At Panama City Beach, where we went, so. Yeah, wasn't originally intending to go there, especially because it's a very popular place during spring break, and the older I get, the less I do this, I guess, spring break things that younger people do. But nonetheless, we were there because it was, we had a funeral to go to on Saturday from a college mentor of mine who passed away. And so I wanted to get down there for that on Saturday. And since we were 2 hours from the Gulf of Mexico, we figured we would just work that into our vacation. So yeah, got down there. It was cold most of the time, but we got a day of partial sunshine on Sunday, and then Wednesday we got a lot of sunshine. So kind of 2 days on the beach, and the rest was just kind of relaxing and eating good food. So yeah. Anyone else get to do anything exciting over spring break? No? I don't usually get to take a spring break. This is the first time I've done it in, I actually don't remember the last time I did. I guess we did, when I started my new job at Roosevelt, I think we took a trip to Mexico briefly.
Wow.
But that's it. We don't do a lot of vacations, so this was definitely different for us. I don't usually have the time in my schedule to do it, but it just so happened this schedule lined up with the majority of my other schedules, except for one. I'm still a student, so I still had to do classwork. But yeah. Well, we're at the back end of this course, so we have welcome. Come on in. We have reached the downhill slope. If that analogy helps, what we're doing kind of here until the end of the course is just applying what we have learned the first half of the course, and so I wanted to talk through some course updates, some changes that I've made that you'll see eventually reflected in Brightspace. Not quite there yet. But some changes to essentially give you some more time to work on your persuasive speech, and then I'll talk a little bit about the final speech of the course, the CRO speech. I'll talk through some kind of common issues that I saw in relation to the informative speech, trends not just in this class, but kind of as I went through and did all the grading for all of my courses. Got caught up on that finally. I know you all are like, finally, right? You get that midterm grade. For my online, I don't know if I mentioned this, the online classes I teach, they're all video recorded speeches, and so I have to go watch 5 to 7 minute speeches for 35 students in one class and 30 students, actually we're down to 25 in the other class. So that takes me a long time, but I enjoy it. And so from all of the classes, I'm kind of seeing some trends, and so I wanted to kind of touch on those things so that those issues or errors or mistakes don't happen for the persuasive speech or CRO speech. So I'll talk through some of those, and then I'll share with you the persuasive speech rubric, and kind of re-emphasize the things that are different about a persuasive speech as you're going through that process. And then I'll share with you a persuasive speech video example to show you kind of what I'm looking for. So that's what we have tonight. And then the rest of the time is really just for you to work on your persuasive speech. And so hopefully you saw that announcement, brought a device so that you can work on that. Show me anything you want. I can give you any feedback, any insight you would like up until when it's due. And so that'll be the goal for today. The goal for Thursday will just be giving you class time to work on the speech. And so that will essentially, like I said, lead us to some course changes compared to what's in Brightspace as far as kind of our schedule of when we're delivering speeches. So I'll touch on that. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's start with course updates and changes. And so you'll see in the announcement, and I'll make it larger. So in the announcement, I provided this update, which essentially is, yeah, question?
So since you said Thursday is just working on the speech, is that like an optional attendance situation?
Yes, basically. So you don't have to come to the classroom unless that is beneficial for you. You could go to the library, you could go to wherever is helpful for you to work on that. Class is not canceled. Class is modified to give you class time to work on it. So the expectation is you are working on it, but you don't necessarily have to do that here. Yeah. So that's, thank you for asking that, to get that clarity. So, so that is this week, week 11. Week 12, what I will work on this week is the presentation order, but the goal will be starting on 4/9, right? Did I get that right? Yeah, next Tuesday, we'll essentially have persuasive speeches 4/9, 4/11, and 4/16 will be our 3-day of persuasive speech delivery. So if you have any conflicts with those dates, I wanted to let you know that now, right, to let me know in advance, because once I post the delivery order, which I do it at random, it's set, right? And as you saw last time, there were a couple people that needed to switch kind of last minute. Once it's posted, it's posted. And so if you have to adjust it or request someone to swap with you from that point, it's on you to do that. So if you do have some kind of conflict that will prevent you from being here one of those 3 days, if it's an approved, class absence, right? Any, other things that could be scheduled other times, doctor's appointments, things like that, don't count. But I wanted to give you those dates so that you could let me know before I post the schedule if you have any conflicts. But the goal will be persuasive delivery that day. The persuasive speech outline will be due at the end of that course week. So 4/14 will be actually when that is due. And then we transition into our civically responsible organization speech prep. So for that assignment, it is the last of our speeches, and you choose whether you want to do an informative speech or a persuasive speech. This speech, all that is this is this kind of think of it as a final exam. It kind of is your final exam. This is a final opportunity to demonstrate these skills by delivering a speech about a civically responsible organization. So that's why it's called a CRO speech. It's not a specific speech type, it's what your subject should be about. And you'll see in some of the examples I share with you, a lot of students choose nonprofit organizations as their civically responsible organization. Now previously you did a practice speech, civic engagement news practice speech. And that's just a practice speech. But if you happen to choose a speech about a civically responsible organization, right, if that's the claim that you're making, this organization is doing some good civic engagement, and this is a news story about that, use that. Pull that in, expand on it. You're welcome to use that for your CRO speech. I don't consider it double dipping because those are just practice speeches. These last 3 speeches are the formal speeches, the ones that, for accreditation purposes, when I'm asked to submit evidence that you've completed the learning objectives, I submit these 3 speeches, right? I submit the documentation for that. So anyway, so you can think of that practice speech. It's just a practice. If it happened to do with an organization, you can expand on that if you want. But again, you choose. You choose which outline template to use, informative or persuasive. You choose which arguments you want to make, which claims you want to make, and you go through the process from start to finish. There's not a draft that's submitted for that, although if you would like me to see a draft during this week, this CRO speech prep week, then send it to me, or you can upload it to Brightspace and send me a message and ask me to review it, and I'm happy to do that. Again, I'll review anything on prior to due date, so that will be the week. If you did want me to review any kind of draft, I'm happy to do that. The following week will be when we deliver that final speech. Arson asked a good question because I know I've mentioned how I sometimes like to do the CRO speech as an online video recorded speech, and unfortunately we won't be able to do that in this class. Not because I don't want to, but because of, has anyone heard of IAI requirements, Illinois Articulation Initiative? So it's a state of Illinois requirement that there are certain classes, general education classes, that all have to meet certain standards. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
So chances are English classes, some foundational math classes are all adhere to the IAI guidelines. Public speaking, speech is no exception. We also must meet those requirements, and those requirements are you must do 3 formal speeches that are at least 5 minutes long, and they must be in person in class for this type of format. If this was an online class, it would be different. If it's a hybrid class, it would be different, but for this format of class, that is the requirement. So I was going back to double check to see if the civic or if the Chicago Places speech was a 5-minute speech, we could have counted that, right, as a speech, or whichever one it was, Chicago Places, whatever one we did in person, and or Civic Engagement News was the one I was looking at. So anyway, but we nonetheless we have not done 3 in person at least for 5 minutes. So our CRO speech will have to be in person on campus. So any questions about that? So we will, so they'll be similar. We'll have kind of this break between, not really break, I should rephrase this. We have this modified schedule for this week where the class time is given to you to prepare that, and then I'll announce the delivery dates and assign the delivery dates at random for the CRO speech. So after you deliver your CRO speech, we have a couple weeks before finals. And the kind of last things, what I usually call is the final assignments or wrap-up assignments, are a few things. One is the course evaluation, which at any point you should see a link either in Brightspace or you may get an email to click a link to complete a course evaluation. I have no control or influence or connection to that. But if you complete it and do a screen grab of having completed it and submit that to Brightspace, you'll get points. You'll get points for doing that. Same thing with Rate My Professor. I like students to know what other students think of my courses, and so
That's why his ratings were so good.
is that why my ratings are good? You know, there are some students who get upset from time to time, and what I will do is I'll also provide an anonymous feedback form, because I don't always get the course evaluations from the school in a timely, what I consider to be a timely manner for me to apply that feedback to the next course. So I will provide a link to just a Google form that you can submit that comes directly to me. If there are any improvements that you think would help improve this course for future students, I am open and would like to hear that. Rate My Professor is just the public way to let other students know your experience in the course and whether those students should take this course or not. And so I have no control over that as well. So there are sometimes, depending on the class, I think, sometimes, because this class isn't as strict as some of my upper level classes I teach for seniors, and so anyway, so there may be a mixed bag of ratings, and I do review those. I do take a look at those and consider even critical feedback I want to be aware of so that I can improve the experience. But my hope is that you're communicating with me if you are dissatisfied with something. Let me know in real time so we can adjust as we go. But anyway, so Rate My Professor, similarly, I don't need that feedback because I'll see it eventually. But just documentation, you've submitted it, some kind of completion screen, take a screen grab of that, upload it to Brightspace, you get those points. I actually don't even look at it. All you're doing is uploading something to trigger in the back end of the system a little notification that I need to assign a grade, is really what that is. And again, for accreditation purposes, at any point they can ask us to provide documentation for a grade, and if I can't do that, I'm in trouble, so that's why everything I like submitted in Brightspace so that it's documented in one spot in case I get asked for that. We're not going through accreditation right now, so I don't think I'll be asked for that, but you never know. So that is, and then the kind of last thing, last assignment I would say is the final speech portfolio. And so for that, you'll see, you should already be able to see it in Brightspace. So if you haven't taken a look, I encourage you to do so since that's coming up. So if you go to Module 4, and it should show up in either week 15 or actually I have to move it because I think I put it in week 14. Yeah, there we go. So the speech portfolio is not a hard assignment, but it could be a long assignment. So it is a compilation of all of your writings from this course, put in a very specific order, in order of when it was completed, basically. And I have the order listed here. So you're taking basically a Word document and copying and pasting the final versions of all of your files into this master Word document and just putting it in this order. That includes your full sentence outlines, any evaluation or reflections that you wrote, and submitting kind of this final compilation, which is helpful, I think, for you to see the work that you've done in this class and to have it all in one spot. It's also helpful for accreditation because when they ask for artifacts, this is the artifact, the main artifact that I usually provide. But you will need to have at least done or completed the CRO speech full sentence outline in order to, that's kind of the last piece that you put. And then you take all of your references, copy and paste them into a master bibliography. And the only new thing that you're writing for this assignment is a paragraph or two summarizing what you've learned from this experience. So compiling everything will let you see your growth throughout the term and then give you a chance to kind of reflect on that a little bit. Yeah?
Does the bibliography need to be like in order, like APA style, like alphabetical order, or do we just put it in order from like this was the informative speech, this was the persuasive?
Yeah. So technically APA format has it in alphabetical order. If you did it in order because you copy and pasted it based on the speech order, I'm fine with that too. So I'm flexible on that. What accrediting bodies essentially are looking for is mainly the citation format. Did you do APA citation correctly? So, yes. So if it's alphabetical or in order of how you copy and paste it, fine with me. Again, we're not going through accreditation here at this time, so I'm not as strict about that. But I do want you to still, again, I think this is a valuable assignment for me and for you, kind of see a collection of your work. It also gives you a resource you can go to that where you can reference these speech outlines should you need to pull from them for other things elsewhere, like in your career. Students have shared they have found that particularly helpful if they've had to do an informative speech. And they're like, man, you may no longer have access to the course online, but you may have access to this speech portfolio. You can go to it, copy what you've done, edit it a little bit, or use it as a template itself to work from. So, variety of reasons. I provide you templates and examples. So the examples, again, I just clicked on the example from the assignment and it wanted me to log into Blackboard. So I'm going to go to Course Resources and go to the speech portfolio. Oh, do I not have them visible? No. Oh, I don't have them visible. I'll make them visible tonight. So, to show you. So anyway, so I have those two examples of speech portfolios. You can use those as a template if you want. They're from other students. Feel free to use that and mirror your assignment after it. So again, the only new thing you're doing, other than just copying and pasting into one master document, is that 1 or 2 paragraph reflection. Make sense? And that's just due by the end of the course, and so that's something you could work on a little at a time up until it's due. I swear maybe that's the other class. I'll make it visible. So that's the final speech portfolio. The other thing that we have, it's optional, not required, but should at that point, you would have just completed your CRO speech delivery, but should you want to re-deliver either your persuasive speech or your informative speech for the opportunity at an improved grade. Again, one of my objectives with this course is to help you improve, right? And so if there was something you didn't do in your informative speech or your persuasive speech that you want to do, all I do is pull up the rubric and I look for that improvement. So there's no way, if you do speech improvement, to get a lower score, right? Because you're redoing a speech you've already done and looking to just improve in wherever maybe you lost points, right? So maybe if you lost some points on your PowerPoint, you could redo it, make sure your PowerPoint meets those guidelines, and you're going to get those points, right? Maybe your introduction was off, or maybe you got thrown off at some point in the body of your speech. Perfectly fine. You can redo it, and again, I'll pull up that rubric, that has the grade, and I'm just looking for improvement in those areas where maybe there's a lower score. So again, no way for you to get a worse score, only an opportunity for you to demonstrate that improvement. So I want to give you that opportunity, right? That opportunity to do that. So,
Would that be done in class?
What's that?
Would that be done in class?
So, good question. Because of the timing of it, it would be an online video recorded speech. Again, you've already done it in person, so again, we have to meet that three speeches for 5 minutes in person. The improvement piece can be done online. So it is an online video recorded delivery. I will open up, I have an assignment, I think it's still invisible right now, but I'll make it visible. It's a separate, you'll see similar to the, whichever speech we did video recorded previously, it's like a discussion post, right? And you upload or you embed your video into a discussion post, and that's how you submit that. So even though you did it in person the first time, speech improvement's just that online video recorded speech. Or technically, you could do it any time between now and the end finals week. So the goal is to kind of have everything done before week 16. That's the ultimate goal. Again, if speech improvement, I say due by end of week 15, if you need it into finals week, but my goal is, I know you have finals in other classes, and so my goal as I design my course is to try to have everything done by that finals week, so you can spend finals week focused on classes that have exams and things that I don't do. So that's my hope. But if you did need finals week to complete any assignments, just let me know. I'm happy to give that extension. So, but again, my hope was get you done with this course so that you can focus on week 16 and other classes. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
As a student, I understand, right? I got finals too. My doctoral program is on the same schedule, so I have finals week that week. So anyway, so that's what we have in store. Questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, shouts of joy, cries of outrage.
Praise God.
Praise God. That's what we have. So it's as mentioned at the very beginning of the course, the way this course is stacked, the way it's designed, we are kind of on that downhill slide, so to speak. Which I don't know, maybe that sounds too negative. Downhill slide? should be a more. We're finishing the race. There we go. We are on the last lap of this race.
Say a word. Come on now.
So those are the course updates, course changes. Anyone who is not here, I am video recording this and can send it to the people who are not here. But if you know anyone who is not here, they may miss some of this, especially if they don't watch the recording of this. So help them out. Make sure they know this updated schedule. But again, this is posted as an announcement on Brightspace. I will be working to update the deadlines that I know a lot of you rely on, right? You look at the due dates in Brightspace, and so I'm going to work to update those to reflect and match that, so that it doesn't throw you off. All right. So let's talk about some common issues, errors. And I'm going to pull up I was trying to find my persuasive speech outline example, and it doesn't look like it got imported over into this course section, so I'll look for that. But again, our informative speech and our persuasive speech, the outlines should look basically the same, right? There's no change in there. The only differences are going to be the things that make persuasive speaking different, right? So that's going to be the organizational pattern that you use. That's going to be, instead of using just one method, like we do in informative speaking, or although we learned you could use a variety of methods in informative speaking, right? You can use explanation, definition, demonstration, right? You can use those in different ways throughout the speech. But for a persuasive speech, we are using every method: logos, ethos, and pathos. You need to incorporate all three of those throughout your speech. And making sure you're using logical reasoning, right? The logos piece, you're using that to support your main point. So looking at the different types of reasoning: inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning, causal reasoning, analogical reasoning, and making sure you're using that to support your points. Those are the differences. Outside of that, it should look basically the same. And so I wanted to kind of start there. So make sure, and I think I saw this maybe more in the online class, versus in person. But I still want to see the decisions that you've made, right? I want to see, and this is true for the CRO speech as well, if you're doing an informative speech. I'm going to want to see the decisions that you've made so that I can then compare that with what you've done. What is the decisions you chose as far as the direction you wanted to go, what you ended up doing, right? Did you end up for a persuasive speech, if you used a direct organizational pattern or used a pro-con organizational pattern, do your main points fit that? Does it say pro? Does it say con, right? Or does it make a claim and then provide a list of supports for that claim? So that's why I want to still see the preparation stage at the start of your outline. Formatted the same way, Times New Roman, single space font, 0.5 inch margins. All of that helps put everything on a page that I can read very quickly. So that's why I have those formatting requirements there. Keeping in mind that, so also something that I saw was making sure that your preview step, and this example actually doesn't include it, but I want to see your main points, right? In your preview step, in your review step, make sure you are previewing and reviewing those main points. And then for your attention step, right? That is where you start when you're delivering your speech. So this was something I did see pretty frequently. So when you are up here ready to deliver your speech, this is what a mentor of mine used to share. He used to say, when you come up to the lectern, place your palms on the lectern and just lay your hands there on the lectern. This helps you stay in a upright position, not leaning, right? So we want to avoid this or this, right? I know I tend to do that when I'm lecturing, but we want to make sure our posture is straight, and so it maybe just helps just to put our palms on the bottom part of the lectern, so that we can stand firm, stand straight, stand strong. So that helps. That helps with our ethos. That helps convey non-verbally credibility when we are standing straight, not leaning. It also helps us project. And so that's also one of the things we want to make sure we're doing right is having that vocal variety and projecting our voice. And so if you did get any kind of comment on your delivery about, don't lean or don't rock, those are pretty common things. Just practicing standing in front of a room, if you want to come up here and practice, right, you can do that as well. And just practice kind of standing up here straight. And then the first words you should say are not, hello, my name is, not, I want to talk to you about, or my subject is. So that might be what you've thought about, right, for the preparation stage, right? So I understand that is kind of where you think to start. And in some informative or persuasive presentations you may do at work, that might be where you have to start. But for the purposes of a formal informative or persuasive speech, where we start is that attention step, right? And it's making sure that we start with wow, getting our audience's attention. So that means we need to make sure we're speaking loud. Specifically when we're doing speeches with an in-person audience, people might be talking, right? So we need to project and take ownership of the space so their attention is on us, and we get their attention with whatever we're saying verbally. So we always start with that attention step. When we get into our rapport step, right, rapport is finding that common ground, right, referencing something we probably all have in common, an experience we've probably all had, right? And so once we get through that rapport step, it can be very brief. It doesn't have to be very long, and we get to that credibility step. The credibility step is the best place to put hello, my name is, because you're talking about your credibility. You're talking about why we should listen to you, and so, I mean, you may also reference some kind of credible source, but the primary objective of a credibility step is answering the audience's questions, why they should listen to you, right? And so sharing with us your credibility is also the place where you can say your name. Say your name, say your credentials, say the research you've done. That's the best spot. And then your preview step, if you did want to mention your title, your preview step is the best place to mention your title. And so it's not that you shouldn't include your name in your title, but there are specific places that are the most strategic and the best places to put that information instead of just starting there. Does that make sense? So then once you get to the preview step, today I'd like to share with you three reasons why you should visit the Shed Aquarium, and what I should have added were what those 3 reasons were. And again, that's for redundancy purposes. So remember that we want to be redundant. We want to repeat the same thing the same way multiple times, which sounds counterintuitive sometimes, right? Because I go, why are you repeating yourself? But the goal of a persuasive or informative speech is to convey information and or to persuade the audience to action. And so it's important to make sure that our audience, if they don't remember anything else, they remember our main points. And that's why we mention our main points multiple times. So we do that in the preview step, we do that in the review step, and those need to look similar. Today I'm going to share with you main point 1, main point 2, main point 3, or today I'm going to share with you the pros and cons of this. And then we go into the body of the speech. And when you do your transition statements, you're going to restate those main points. So that is, I realize I hadn't quite articulated that previously, that those transition statements are important for redundancy as well. I've now shared with you my first main point, unique animals that are at the Shed Aquarium. Next, I'm going to share with you Illinois resident days, right? So by including both those main points, right, connecting them, it really helps your transition flow smoothly. It helps you flow between your main points and includes redundancy. So again, if our audience doesn't remember anything else, they at least remember our main points because we've said it to them multiple times. So our transitions are important for that redundancy. And then, and just a note, because I noticed I saw this a few times, once you get to your last main point, you don't have to have another transition statement or connective. Once you get to your last main point, you go right, once you're done with that, your main point, supporting points, when you're done with that, you go right into your cue. Because the point of transitions or connectives is to connect main points. And I realize I had on the outline, I have like transition after the last main point. That's only if you're going to be putting an additional main point. You would want to make sure you had a transition between those. But once you're done with the last supporting point, material that you have, quotes, statistics, claims, arguments for your persuasive speech, when you're done with that, you go right into in conclusion. Today I shared with you, and then you're reviewing those main points. And then you close with wow. So just like you got our attention with something prophetic, something that gets our attention, you're going to do the same thing at the end, which a lot of you did, right? Included a quote, or you wrapped up kind of a story as a part of your memorable closing. So, so those are some of the common kind of issues that I saw, and then just making sure that your references are in APA format. So making sure that you, if you've not been to the OWL Purdue site or you've not used some kind of reference machine, making sure you double check to make sure that's in APA format. Those were, let me make sure I got everything. Outline template. Keep the labels, so the formatting of the outline, make sure all of these labels are still there. It doesn't matter if it's where A, B, and C is or where 1, 2, 3 is. That's not as important, but what is important is that you keep the things bolded that are these labels. Again, that, for me, that helps me read through them more quickly and get through the grading more quickly. And then, and then making sure you have that clear cue. I think some people used something other than in conclusion, which is fine. It risks me missing it. I don't think I missed it. If you saw your feedback, for this class, I don't think I missed them, but I am listening for in conclusion or to conclude. That is the specific word that I'm looking for to cue us into the fact that you're about to wrap up your speech. Cool. So for this speech, the persuasive speech, let me just double check because I did change these, so I want to make sure. There we go. Persuasive speech delivery is a 3 to 5 minute extemporaneous persuasive speech with a PowerPoint visual aid. So 3 to 5 minutes. I'm realizing now that doesn't meet IAI requirements, but oh well, we'll run with it. I think that's why this used to be 5 to 7 minutes, but for the purposes of this course, we'll stick with it. Try to get close to 5 minutes if you can. So that's the persuasive speech. The rubric. Let me just show you the rubric. So this is available on course resources. And the reason I point this out is because this, it's a version of this that I use in Brightspace to do grading. So as you are working on your speech and you start rehearsing your speech, you'll see there's two tabs, one for what says persuasive speech and one says persuasive outline. I would encourage you to use this as a checklist, right? So checklist, is this, am I doing this, right? Have I done these things? So as you're going through, make sure you check, do that check. And then speech outline, similarly, this is what I'm looking for. And you should be able to see the rubrics in Brightspace, but if not, again, I have them all here. And this is what I'm using to grade. So if you use this as you're working on your assignment and use it as a checklist to make sure you've completed it all, when I go through and do it, I'll do the same. And so it's not a trick. I want you to get all the points possible. So that's why I like to provide you this and how I would encourage you to use it. So the last thing I wanted to show before we kind of transition to work time is an example of a persuasive speech. We've seen pieces of this before, right? But I've not shown a full persuasive speech example, right? Full video. I've shown, so you'll recognize a piece of this because we saw part of it at one point, because it's about lead in the drinking water. So it's a persuasive speech. As you watch this speech, take some notes. Take some notes on and again, you won't necessarily have to turn this in, but just take some notes on what you hear. Do they have an effective attention step, right? Do they build credibility? Do they establish rapport? Do they preview their main points? What are their main points? Do they clearly transition between their main points? Do they give you a cue? And this is not a speech class here. I don't know if I've shared that some of the videos I use are from a different textbook provider, Stephen A. Lucas, who was at the University of Wisconsin. And some of his stuff is good, some of his stuff I don't like, which is why I don't use his textbook. But so the way he teaches it's a little bit different, but there's still a lot of the foundational stuff there. So I want us to watch this, reflect on it, and then I'll ask you what stood out to you, and then we'll transition to kind of work time, and then and that'll kind of wrap up our time together. So, sound good? I know we have a couple of people that have to leave early, so feel free to step out. But I will, and again, I'll provide this video to those people who are not here. So here we go. Nope. See, I tested it and it worked. Why did it not work? Oh, here we go. PC. There we go. All right, let's try that again. Oops, no. There we go.
It's like a third world country.
All right, here we go.
It's crazy. It's like a third world country. That's what Carlos Young said. I thought I was going to die. That's what Joyce Wilson said. Disgusting. They need to fix the problem. That's what Mitchell Garrow said. These voices from the Michigan news site MLive represent only a few of the thousands of people who endured the Flint, Michigan water crisis of 2015 to 2017. The crisis happened when Michigan changed the way Flint received its water. Because of this change, lead levels in the city's water supply skyrocketed. People couldn't drink the water, couldn't bathe with it, couldn't cook with it. Thousands became ill, and the full health consequences will continue for decades. But the problem of lead in America's water supply goes far beyond Flint. A 2016 investigation by the news agency Reuters found 3,000 water systems across the United States with lead levels higher than Flint's. Even right here in Madison, Local officials recently found elevated lead in the drinking water at 6 public schools. Before working on this speech, I hadn't realized the extent of lead in our drinking water. And according to my class survey, most of you don't consider it a major health risk. But now I'm convinced that we cannot continue to ignore this problem. Today I'll explain the extent of the problem and why it's so dangerous. Then I'll look at a plan of action that can help solve the problem. Getting the lead out of our water supply won't be easy, but it's something we have to do for the sake of our generation and for future generations. Let's start by taking a look at the scope of the problem. Lead in our drinking water comes primarily from lead pipes that carry water into our homes, offices, schools, and dormitories. It's hard to say exactly how many lead pipes are out there. A 2016 article in the Detroit Free Press explains that most cities didn't track the use of lead pipes historically. However, a recent study by Joseph Ferry, an economist at Northwestern University, shows that around 6 million homes receive water through lead pipes. Another 81 million homes receive water through pipes with lead soldering and fixtures, which can leach just as much lead into the water supply as the pipes themselves. Drinking water contaminated with lead causes a number of serious, potentially deadly health risks. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, in adults, those problems include high blood pressure, joint and muscle pain, memory loss, mood disorders, problems with pregnancy, and more. But the health effects are much worse in children. Brain damage, learning difficulties, behavioral problems, ADHD, seizures, and more. Most troublesome is the fact that these problems are not temporary. As science writer Alexandra Ossolian stated at the time of the Flint crisis, lead is toxic. If it makes its way into the still developing brains of young children, many of the effects can be permanent. The Environmental Protection Agency, working through its branches in every state, is supposed to test and regulate lead levels, but not enough is being done. Right now, the EPA defines excess lead in water as 15 parts per billion. When lead levels get that high, utility companies are supposed to enact a treatment plan and get lead levels down. However, a 2016 study by CNN found that 5,300 water supply systems are currently in violation of this EPA rule, and many more systems don't test their water at all. Out of those 5,300 violations, the EPA has taken action in 88 cases. That is fewer than 2% of the violations. According to Eric Olson of the Natural Resources Defense Council, far too often, neither the states nor the EPA take any formal enforcement action, leaving millions and millions of people at risk. Now that we've seen the problem of lead pollution in our drinking water, what can be done about it? I support a plan originally proposed by Senator Ben Cardin of Maryland. Known as the True Leadership Act, it has 3 main parts. First, it would provide $70 billion over 10 years to fund the removal of lead pipes by utility companies, neighborhoods, and homeowners. This would give cities and property owners a financial incentive to start removing the pipes now before the problem gets any worse. Second, the plan would require all water utilities to regularly test and report the amount of lead that they pump into our homes. This will provide public information that we all have a right to know about the amount of lead in our drinking water. It will also identify the water systems most in need of immediate attention. Third, the plan would provide special support for children who live in areas with elevated lead in the water supply. This will be crucial as the affected kids learn and develop. This plan will be practical and effective. It has support from such public health and environmental organizations as Clean Water Action, Earth Justice, and the American Public Health Association. It also has broad support in the Senate with 30 co-sponsors, including our own Senator, Tammy Baldwin. As Baldwin states, the bill will invest in better solutions to confront water problems throughout the country by building a modern, made-in-America water infrastructure. In conclusion, I hope you now understand the problem of lead in our water supply and how we can begin to solve it. There's no reason why any child or adult in America should have to suffer from lead in their drinking water. The time has come to get the lead out of our water supply so that we never again have a tragedy like that in Flint, Michigan. You have a right to clean, healthy drinking water, and so does everyone else in the United States.
So, for this speech, was it? Let's go through. What was it? A speech of, or what was the speech type? Fact, value, or policy? Policy, exactly. And the reason it was policy was he had a policy, right? He had a specific plan, right? Did he have facts, right? Did he convince you that this problem exists? Yes.
Yes.
He did. Did he convince you that this problem is wrong?
Yes.
So he also included, if he had stopped there, right, it could have just been a persuasive speech of fact. If he had stopped with the value claims and supporting value claims, it would have been a persuasive speech of value. But he went further and said, this is the plan I have, or the plan that I propose, which made it a policy. So I think it's a great example of how you can take a specific topic and go any one direction, right? He would have needed to provide probably more evidence in order to keep it just a persuasive speech of fact. He would have needed to go into more of the harms, I would say, probably, and convincing us of the moral justification or the immorality of this, if he was going to do just a persuasive speech of value. But he went the direction of policy, and that's why he included good information, right? He had good sources. What was his organizational pattern? Direct, cause and effect, problem solution. Monroe's motivated.
Problem solution.
Problem solution. Now he used the word problem, but he used the word solve kind of in place of solution. But it still is a problem, solution, organizational pattern. So then he included sources. So what about the speech stood out to you? What were some things that stood out to you about this particular speech? The statistics, right? So the stats that he had as part of his supporting points, right? He had good facts, and that was where we saw a piece of that previously, the clip about Joseph Barry, economist Joseph Barry, and using that source. But this gave us more, right? More facts, more statistics, data that he incorporated into his speech. And so I hope you saw that that was a really good example of logos, right? So if we, logos and ethos. So if we kind of take a look to see where he used logos, where he used ethos, where he used pathos, right? He used all three. The logical reasoning he used the causal, right, where he presented to us the causes, or the effects of this cause, right? The negative effects of harmful drinking water, and he made that connection, he made that link. So he used the causal reasoning, logical reasoning. He used good sources, right? He uses good, credible sources, a variety of them, right? And that's ethos. And so he also he used a variety of logical reasoning, right? He used analogical. He did some direct, and he did some indirect. I think I picked up on all of them. Or indirect, right? Which we also could call reasoning from principle or reasoning from specific instance. So good. So what else stood out to you? What else stood out to you about his speech? You used good stats. What else? Yeah.
I was wondering, so for the stats, can we use that, like if I use that in my speech, can I use that as like a citation, like my verbal citations?
Exactly. You can. Yep. Yep. Any stats you use, any quotes you use should be cited in your references. You may be paraphrasing it, so you don't always have to do a direct quote, right? You can paraphrase information in your own words. You still need to include an in-text citation, right? Something something like if you're citing me, right, you may put it in your own words, right? I think that was where my last publication was somewhere around there. You know, you could put it in your own words, but you still need to put the in-text citation and include your references, yeah. So, but yeah, what he included there, the names of people that he's referencing, those were great examples of in-text verbal citations. Yeah. What else? What else stood out to you? Did I see another hand raised a minute ago? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
really liked his attention step, using the quotes from the piece for young people, because it really like put emotion into the speech a little bit, so.
Precisely. Yeah, his intro, specifically his attention step, right? And then also his conclusion, right? His memorable closing. Both included very pathos-driven language, and particularly that attention step, right? Using the quotes from people who have experienced these problems, it gets you, right? It gets you to feel those emotions. So that's a great example of pathos in action. Other thoughts, other things that stood out to you? I wanted to point out his PowerPoint, right? So making sure that that for, and actually I'll kind of go back. I'll go back, but I'll play it, but I'm going to mute it. So you see, just about every slide, I think I caught one slide that doesn't meet the 7-7 rule, right? So making sure that if you were incorporating words of any kind, that we want it nice and big, right? And we want no more than 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No more than 7 words across, and no more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words down, right? And so we do that so that we can make the font large enough for everyone to see. And you'll notice when he did some quotes, he included some specific. Let me go further along here. Well, this was a good example of kind of using key words, right, instead of full sentences. Right? You may be speaking in full sentences, but what you are showing on your visual aid are just those key words. And so I think this was a good example, not necessarily following the strict 7-7 rule, but you see he's kind of using somewhat of a Z pattern to guide our eyes, right? And so that was kind of another option. But what I wanted to show is the quote, right? So when he's using quotes, the way he does it is actually a little bit different, right? He has each letter spell out. You know, and that's another strategic way to, again, guide your audience to what you want them to see when you want them to see it. And you'll see that he pulls up a blank screen in between things. When he's not showing anything on his visual aid, right? When there's not something on his visual aid to support what he's saying verbally, he just, in AV tech, when we were doing stuff in like for conferences, we could call it fade to black. There's a button that essentially makes everything go dark. But for him, he's just putting a blank slide in there. And so that blank slide doesn't distract from what he's saying verbally and really reinforces that what you're seeing on the screen is what he wants you to see to reinforce what he's saying verbally. And when he has nothing on the screen, there's nothing that you see to distract you from what he is saying verbally. And so here you can see, right, he's meeting that 7-7 rule. No more than 7 words per line, no more than 7 lines per slide. So I wanted to mention that because he does a good job with that. Other thoughts, comments, insights, concerns? Yes?
I just had a question regarding the persuasive speech. So I'm looking at the persuasive outline like rubric, and it says we need 5 credible sources cited. Is it still 5 for, since we're doing like 5 minutes, or is it gonna be less?
It can be 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be 3 to 5.
No,
I'll accept
thank
that.
you.
Yeah, because I have changed the time allotment. So, but again, your sources, those could be quotes, those could be things that you paraphrase. So, so I'm finding most people are usually able to get 3, if not 4 sources. So, I won't be as picky with that. I'll just mainly be looking that you have at least I look for at least 3, right? The way I see it is you should have some kind of source to support each of your main points, and so if you have at least main points, you need to have at least 3 credible sources. That's kind of how I see it. You may also have a source in your introduction and a source like for your memorable closing and your conclusion, so that would get you to 5, but I won't necessarily be looking at that as strictly with the persuasive speech. Other questions? Feeling good? You got this? Well, here's what I'll do for you. So Wednesday, I may have posted this on, did I post I'm doing some office hours on Wednesday? So on Wednesday, from 7 to 8, okay, I didn't put that on here. I'm just going to be online on Zoom, and so I'll post a link should you want to hop on Zoom. All of my classes, essentially, I've offered an opportunity to hop on Zoom. I can hop on Zoom at other times. Just reach out to me and we can schedule that. But if you wanted to hop on Zoom from 7 to 8 on Wednesday, or on Thursday during this class time, since you aren't necessarily required to be here, you could choose to be here. I will choose to either be in my office at National Louis or here. I'll be in one of those 2 places, and I will be on Zoom during this class time. And so the same link that I share for Wednesday, it's the link that goes to Zoom on my computer. It's the same link. So if you want to hop on during class time on Thursday, show me anything, talk through anything, I'll be available to you, both Wednesdays. So Wednesday from 7 to 8, and Thursday from 5:30 to 7. So should you have any questions, want to show me anything, I'm here for you. And I'll do the same thing when we get to the CRO speech, recognizing that there won't be a draft submitted for that. It will just be moving on and doing it from start to finish and submitting a final product. So if you did want to show me something, I'll set up some online office hours as well. But again, like I said, I'm available to you at other times. During the business day, I have a Calendly link that I can send you, and you can look to see what 30-minute or I think it's based on 30-minute blocks of time I'm available between 8 and 5. And then after 5, on Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm usually available because I'm usually grading or doing my own schoolwork. So I can usually hop on Zoom those times if you want to talk through anything. So talk through anything about the class, show me anything regarding to your speeches. Really, my role for the second half of this course is to support you as you go through this process and complete the learning objectives. So, yeah. All right. So that's all I have. It's 6:30, around 6:30. I mean, class isn't technically until 6:50. You're welcome to stay if you'd like. If there's anything you want to show me, I will play some music. So feel free to hang out. If you want to talk with me about anything, feel free to raise your hand or come up here. But I'll play some music, and because I have a class after this, so I'll be here. And should you wish to hop on Zoom Wednesday or Thursday, I'll see you then. Otherwise, I will see you next week for speech delivery. Thank you all.